ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you right now to our panel discussion. And as you have already heard by the nice words of Daniel, it's about eFuels, respectively also looking at the question whether this is an environmental friendly solution or whether it is a distraction from more sustainable alternatives. This is what we're going to discuss over the next 40 minutes. What can you expect? Of course, in a couple of seconds, I'm going to introduce our experts to you here on stage. And then we will discuss the subject together with you. So please use the conference app, drop your questions, respectively also rate the ones that you see so that we can see by the order of appearance your priorities and then we can follow your customized discussions. So whom do we have here on stage? So on the left-hand side is my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Monika Griefahn, and she is the chairwoman of the eFuel Alliance. An applause for Monika. Very good. Yeah, so this works. And Monika, she says e-fuels are a key pillar of the energy transition. So welcome here on stage. Then in the middle, we have Mr. Sebastian Bock, and he is the managing director at Transport and Environment. Also an applause for Sebastian, please. Great. And Sebastian, he states, it's a little bit longer, he says, we need e-fuels, our subject, we need e-fuels, and we need a lot of them. But they are a dead end for the road transport, he says. They are too expensive, they are also incredibly inefficient, strong statement, and cause deadly air pollution. As we will never have enough of them, we need to use them where we have no other alternative, he says, to clean up the transport, and this should be in aviation and also in shipping. Okay, welcome here. We are going to look at your statement in a lot of detail, of course, also with the questions from the audience. And then on my left-hand side, it's my great pleasure also to introduce to you Mr. Karl Dums, and he is the senior project lead for eFuels at Porsche AG. Another applause for Karl. Very good. And Karl, he says, e-fuels are not the alternative, but they are the complement to electromobility. Every drop of e-fuel replaces fossil fuels and is a step in the right direction. Okay, so 3 statements, and as I have already introduced you to the audience rather superficially, I would like to give you also the opportunity to tell us a little bit about your role, your company, and your connection to eFuels. And maybe as the representative of the eFuel Alliance, Monika, can you tell us a little bit about the role?
The eFuel Alliance is an association which combines about 170 companies, institutions, but also consumer organizations like the IDAC in Germany with 20 million members in 17 countries, because we think e-mobility is a future, it's very important, but it's not enough and not quick enough to really have CO2 reduction very quickly. So what we need is the e-fuels on top of that, and because we have a lot of sun and a lot of wind in other countries, and we have at the moment in Europe, for instance, an import of 60 to 70% of fossil fuels, and if we have not the e-mobility very quickly, we want to replace the fossil fuels by e-fuels, means renewable energies by solar and wind will produce hydrogen to produce e-fuels in a sustainable way, and it is also a good product for those countries who produce it around Latin America, around Africa at the coasts, because you have a lot of places where you can really have much more energy produced in a sustainable way and a renewable way than you can do it here. And that's why you can use it, of course, for ships and airplanes. But if you make fuels out of the ground material, so to say, you always have different sorts, and it is much more, it's cheaper to have everything, not only for airplanes and for ships, because that is not enough demand. You need it also for cars or for instance, out of the road machines, for generators and everything which needs liquids. You need liquids all over the world in a lot of countries where you don't have enough electricity at the moment, where you don't have fuel stations, etc.
Okay, thank you very much, Monika. So clear statement, not only the cars which are in operation, but really across the sectors. Now let's see what Sebastian is stating about his role and also maybe about the usage of eFuels. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. A lot of things to unpack there, I think, and I'm sure we'll get to a lot of the points you just raised. Maybe just very briefly, because I think a lot of people in the room might not know Transport and Environment. So we are an umbrella organization. We represent around 60 members, non-profit organizations working on transport across Europe. We have 5 offices around Europe and a big one in Brussels. And we mainly work on the intersection between the capitals and EU policy. And what kind of sets us apart a bit from a lot of the other organizations working on transport is that we have a big analytics team in Brussels and also here in Germany. So we do a lot of in-house modeling. So a lot of the reports, a lot of the assessments we make, we can actually do ourselves. So we don't have to rely on third-party sources. And to go a bit into what you said, but I don't want to stay talking for too long because I think we'll get there. We very much agree that we need eFuels, and we also very much agree that there are certain locations in the world that may be better to produce them than others. But I think where we fundamentally disagree is that we will never have enough eFuels to power all the sectors that we could potentially power with them. So that means by default, we need to use them in those sectors where we don't have alternatives. And I mean, as you can see by just walking outside of this room, we have alternatives on the road. We have NIO there, we have Tesla there, we've heard presentations from a lot of others. If you look at airplanes and ships, you can't put a battery on an airplane, or on a ship you can, but you just won't get very far. So we don't have an alternative in those sectors. And that's why it means if we spend any of the eFuels in the sector where we have an alternative, that means the other sectors, aviation and shipping, will need to burn fossil fuels. So by definition, any drop of eFuel that you put into a tank of a car is not climate neutral because you take it away from the sectors that have no alternative. And I think that's a really, really key point to understand here when we talk about the climate impacts of those fuels.
Okay. Also a very strong statement. Thank you for that, Sebastian. And Karl, your role and also, let's say, what you are dealing with on day-to-day basis at Porsche. Tell us a little bit about this.
So Porsche, does somebody know Porsche?
Easiest job.
So I'm working for Porsche since 16 years. Most of the time I spent in the powertrain development. When I came to Porsche, we started working on electrification of powertrains. So I'm quite familiar with electrical powertrains as well. I also was responsible for the engine pre-development, and this is for electric powertrains as well as for combustion engines. I was part of the concept team of the Taycan, so it's small part also for the Taycan is on me. But now I'm working on eFuels because I'm absolutely sure that we need to have eFuels for the existing car fleet. If we look outside, we have to see 2 things. If we look into the future, we can make a decision. Either we can take an electric car if it fits to the needs for the customer, or we need to deliver combustion engines as well, as the markets don't develop in the same direction, in the same speed, and therefore there will be customers' demand also in the future, maybe for combustion engines as well. If you look into the past, to the existing car fleet, there is no choice. We have to deal with the existing cars that are on the road, and we can either burn fossil fuel in the future as well, so the existing car fleet cannot contribute to CO2 reduction, or we can make a difference and we use eFuels. And regarding where we burn it, if we look at the whole volume of fossil fuels where we burn it, it does not make a difference whether you replace 1 liter of eFuels at the car or at the plane, because in the end, the overall demand is the same. And you have to replace it at this point of the value chain where the customers are willing to pay for it.
Okay. Also a very strong statement. Now, maybe to the tech team, could we maybe activate the poll that we have, please? Because there is a question, and of course, maybe the numbers that you know differ, so it's not really about the accurate numbers here, but the poll is about globally. There are currently some estimated 1.6 or more billion vehicles in use, and it is expected that the number is going to reach approximately 2.3 or even more billion vehicles by 2030. And some forecasts, some research says that approximately 200 million of those are going to be electrical vehicles. So the key question is, what we would like to ask you, what do you think, how should the non-electrical vehicles be operated in the future? Yeah, so this is also going to be a word cloud. So your ideas, your assumptions, please put it in. Yeah, so hydrogen, we see here, some say solar power. Some say hydrotreated vegetable oil. E-fuels are there, other sustainable fuels. Hydrogen, definitely. So far, the lead. eFuels growing. Retrofitting electrical vehicles. Some say still gasoline. Yeah, so we see that this is right now developing. Now, when you see this, Karl, what is your reaction to what you see here?
So what I see, hydrogen would be a good solution, but the existing cars are like they are, and the customers have paid for it. It's their investment, and it's not so easy to change these cars. Replacing it would mean all the customers have to buy new cars.
Yes.
It's not affordable for all the ones. And therefore, hydrogen is a good solution anyway, because eFuels is made out of hydrogen.
Yes.
It's just another form of using this hydrogen. You cannot use it directly in the combustion engine. So what we do is we combine it with recycled carbon dioxide out of the air in the best way. And then we make eFuels. And this eFuels is completely usable. There is no need for changing anything at the car. So you could use this green hydrogen in existing cars.
Okay, so over the time, of course, the existing fleet is going to be replaced, but what we have at the moment and for the next 10, 15 years and so on.
Will be actually till 2050 if you look at the 1.6 billion. They will not change like this.
Exactly.
And that's why I say it is not quick enough. It's electricity, that's the point, you know.
And for sure, we don't have that much eFuels today.
Of course.
We need to, as we need to grow the economy for battery electric vehicles, we also have to increase and to industrialize the production of eFuels. But the benefit is you could use this fuel as a drop-in. And as I mentioned before, every liter, every drop of eFuel which replaces fossil fuel helps.
Okay. So Sebastian, because I mean he wants to jump into the discussion. Yes, Sebastian.
Yeah, so many things to say. I think we should start by just acknowledging that the existing fleet is a big problem that we need to tackle, and we don't have easy answers to it. I think the word cloud that disappeared, showed that it will probably be a combination of a lot of them. But I think we would actually be quite a step further if we could agree here on this panel that eFuels, if ever, would only on road be a solution for the existing fleet and not for cars to be sold in Europe after 2035. Because currently, I know the eFuels Alliance for sure is pushing for loopholes to allow the sale after 2035, which would then make this problem bigger, right? Because you would have more of those cars you would have to
We are not
replace.
only talking about Europe. That's the point,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's what I said.
Yeah.
We are in 17 countries. There's Japan, and there is Namibia, and there is Chile and Argentina, and those countries which have long distances. And
Exactly, but I think we also need to be so honest and say that 80% of new cars are sold in China, Europe, and the US. So those are by far the leading markets, and they all moving electric
but they get
quite
our
quickly.
used cars. That's the point.
Exactly,
You
but
have to
let
think
me
about that
finish.
as well.
Let me finish, maybe.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is it's not a coincidence that our colleague from Porsche is sitting here, I think, and not a colleague from, say, Stellantis or Volkswagen. Because what we haven't talked about yet is costs. And the costs of eFuels, unfortunately, make it quite unlikely that they will be a solution for those used cars. Because the people driving used cars most of the time are people who can't afford a new car, can't afford a new BEV. So those people will probably not be able to afford eFuels, because every independent study that's been done so far puts the price of eFuels, if they are scaled. Because the other thing we need to remember, there are no eFuels today, right? We have some demonstration plants. We have like few liters that are produced every year, a few thousand liters, but we're nowhere near the scale that we need to be. We have some technological problems that we just haven't resolved yet, like direct air capture. Haven't talked about that. So eFuels, we always talk about them as if they were a thing that we could just buy, but that's not the case, and that will most likely not be the case for the foreseeable future. So I just want to do a bit of a reality check here when we talk about that. Could say a lot of things about hydrogen as well, but I think other people might want to contribute as well.
Okay, and Monika, your point on it?
I mean, it's like every technology. I remember when we started with wind energy, it was very expensive because it was in a small scale. And I remember some of the older ones probably know it, the Grovian, which was in Brunsbüttel in Germany. Their 1 kilowatt hour cost €2.50 because it was new. And if you get in big scale production, then it will be much cheaper. And the point is, we need it, as you said, for ships and airplanes. But if you make it only for ships and airplanes, then it will be still too expensive. You need a bigger scale. And people are there to invest, but they are thinking of other markets and not putting into Europe or wherever, because of we have legislation at the moment which makes it very difficult to prove that it is a green fuel. And I think if we open it and make it much easier for the investments, we will get both. We get the results for the airplanes and the ships, and we get it for the existing fleet, and for those countries where it will be very difficult to have only BEV cars.
Okay, so but I mean, I have also a question to Karl, because I mean, Porsche, it was in the media that in Chile that there is a plant which is right now under construction, or it is established there. Can you tell us something? Why did you, or let's say Porsche, actually take this step to create this eFuel facility?
As I already mentioned, Porsche as well is on the way for transformation. Our ambition is to produce and to sell 80% of our new cars as purely electric cars in 2030. But on the other hand, there is a customer demand, and some of our customers in several regions of this planet, they want to still have a combustion engine as well. And as you probably know, Porsche cars are very long-lasting. So there is a demand for this existing fleet.
Yes.
And our customers are asking, what can we do with these cars? Is there a sustainable way to drive these cars? And eFuels is one option.
Yeah.
And therefore, we are looking for a partner. It's HRF Global. And together with HRF Global, we built a pilot plant in Chile. The opening was by end of 2022. And we showed in this pilot plant that it's possible to make eFuels out of wind energy, water, and CO2. There is nothing around, but we produce eFuels. And you can use it directly in your car, and you can run the car with a CO2 reduced fuel. This is a demonstration plant, we know.
Yeah.
the ambition was not to produce as much fuel as possible. The ambition was to show that the technology, all the technology, electrolyzer, methanol synthesis, methanol to gasoline synthesis, is available. And the problem is not to scale it up or to build it. The problem is that the regulation boundary is not there, at least in Europe, where we need it, so that the investments for the industrialization will be done.
Okay, so if it would be possible, where would you say would be the ideal spot in order to produce e-fuels actually at very, very large scale?
So this is also a reason why we choose Chile and not Germany. Because in Chile, we have a people density of 2 people per square kilometer. And these 2 people, they are living in a city called Punta Arenas. It's 120,000 people living there. So you can imagine around this city, there is no one. So there is no competition to other industry. There is no need for other industry or other sectors like electric cars. There are no electric cars. So all the wind energy, which is much more than we have here in Germany, is gone every day. And we either can use it to make e-fuels, because it's no chance to bring this energy to Europe as electricity or as a gas. You need to make a liquid. And if you do that, you can transport it, you can store it, and we can use all the infrastructure which is already there.
Okay.
Also the distribution infrastructure, that's also an important point, because chemically, e-fuel is the same like fossil fuel. It's not fossil. And that's a good thing about it. And that's why we need it as quick as possible in big scales. And we need to get other legislation which is not hindering to import it, because at the moment, even if people will construct it somewhere, like in Chile or in Namibia or wherever, then they cannot import it, because it's not appreciated as a green fuel by the legislation as it is at the moment. And that's the problem. And that's why we don't get the big investments, because we need the big investments if we want to have it also in Europe and in China and in whatever.
Okay, and so I think Sebastian...
This is also valid for kerosene, for sustainable aviation fuel. Even if we would use, we want to use this fuel and put it into a plane, we are not able to bring it into Europe due to the legislation we have today. So it would not...
it's seen as a fossil fuel, and that's not fair.
Let also Sebastian have a word.
Yeah, I think we agree that there are policy hurdles that we need to overcome. I think we also need to say, though, that on aviation we actually have legislation, we have laws on the book that not only allow the import of those fuels, but actually mandate them. So by 2026, 2027, you will have to have a blend-in e-fuel if you depart from a European airport. So this is already happening. So we have a sector that actually now has a mandate that needs to buy it.
But very low percentage.
It's
only for 1.6, we were for 5%.
It's a very low percentage, and it will scale up, and it needs to scale up. But the problem is...
Can you name the percentage again?
It is now 1.6%, and TNA has promoted that, and we were for 5% because we thought we have to be more.
But it's going to increase,
Yeah, I think we're discussing 2 different regulations here, but let's not bore the audience with that. But we have like legislation for aviation that will actually scale up, and even that demand we cannot meet. So I was at the National Aviation Conference late last year, where the CEO of Lufthansa was on stage as well, and he said there that they need every e-fuel they can get their hands on, because currently, as we just heard, we only have those demonstration plans. So we have a law that mandates them to buy this, but they can't buy it yet. And now we want to discuss to take even volumes of e-fuels away to burn them on road. That's just not sustainable, and that's why this is not going to work.
Okay, so let us have a look at the the questions that we received from the audience. And there is the first one here with 5 likes, which says, okay, which price per 100 kilometers do you expect for eFuels versus battery electric vehicles? So are there some guesstimates on it, just to put this into perspective?
It is dependent on the legislation and whether you can import it. And I mean, there are calculations between 150 and 250, but the question is also
the price per liter. Price per liter, yes, yeah.
But it's also the question whether you calculate all the infrastructure and whether you say the BEV as such is better, even if it's like in Poland, 80% coal. You know, and that's not the point. I mean, you say if it's looking only if you look from tank to tail and not from wheel to tail, and that's also a problem, I think.
Okay, but could we try to somehow put a price tag on it because the audience wants us to?
That's why I said 150 to 250 is a calculation in 2035.
Okay.
But just to be clear, that's a calculation, and I know that number is used repeatedly by a study that was commissioned by the oil industry. So I think we need to take those numbers with a pinch of salt. The studies by, say, the Potsdam Institute or by the ICCT put that number quite significantly higher. They put the production cost at 2 to 3 euros at least, but that's production cost. So that's before shipping, that's before handling, that's before taxes. So the price that you and I would pay at the pump is likely significantly higher, which again goes back to the point I was making earlier. That's why it's going to be really hard to use this fuel for the existing fleet, because those people likely...
But it depends on the scale. That's what I said with wind energy 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Those studies factor in the scale-up of the industry, and that's when they get to those numbers.
And they don't calculate all the distribution and the infrastructure costs. That you must do as well.
Could you explain why we should trust the Potsdam Institute more than a company that offers fuel for, let's say, 150?
Well, no, I think the main difference here is the oil industry obviously has a vested interest in this. They want to keep their existing infrastructure running. They want this to be a solution. Yeah. So I just wouldn't trust the numbers of them versus an independent climate institute. The Potsdam Institute, as I think a lot of people here know, is one of the most renowned climate institutes in the world. I would just, if I had to bet money on this, I would listen to independent experts rather than a paper that was commissioned by the oil industry.
I mean, we cannot validate this here, so there are different numbers, so which are on the horizon. Of course, with the volume, prices will actually then also be reduced. But okay, so it's between 4, this is the estimation, or it could be 1.5, 2, depending on the authority which made the calculation.
No, it's dependent on the scale.
On the scale,
depending on what you calculate in, and that's what I think you have to be fair. Not only to calculate the pure tank to
yes. Okay.
Tail.
So then we have another question from the audience with 3 likes, which says, if customers were given a choice between eFuels or battery electric vehicles, what where is it? What option do you think will come on top, and why? So, of course, I mean, this is a question from your experience. What do you think? Will it be eFuels or will it be battery electric vehicles? What will be the choice?
Once again, I said it in the beginning. The BEV is a good solution and is a solution for the European market, is for the inner cities, etc. And I think also what NIO proposes to exchange the batteries, I think personally it's a much better thing than having the batteries inside, because you see already today that people are a little bit suspicious to buy used cars because they are not sure about the battery. And if you have battery as a service, then it's a very good thing. But there are so many conditions, like your Paul for the cloud, that you have the existing fleet and you have everything, and every liter, either in a car or in a ship, is the same, which saves the climate. And that's why we need every liter we can get for everything, and that's why we to have it, scale it up.
Okay, strong statement. But Sebastian, he wants to make another point. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I think we can go back to that point. I think logically it just doesn't work. Like if you put that fuel in a car where you have an alternative, like the ones we see out here, you could have a climate-friendly solution and then have a climate-friendly solution for the plane as well. So I think we will just probably have to agree to disagree on that. I think the question is really key though, because my worry is that a lot of people at the moment will actually answer eFuels, not BEVs, as much as I would like them to answer BEVs. And the reason for that is we have a transport minister that goes to every microphone he can speak into and suggests that eFuels are the solution that are around the corner that exist. Most people here in the room, we probably know that isn't the case. eFuels exist on paper, but they don't exist in reality. The BEVs do exist in reality. And we also remember in 2022, Wissing gave this famous interview where he actually said, eFuels will play no role on road because we know the decision has been made. But the public debate and the fact that we're actually having this panel here shows how far that narrative has moved. And I think that is really dangerous. Also, if we go back to the presentations from the morning, look at what is happening in China, how Chinese competitors are coming here. If we look at the future of the German automotive industry, I think this eFuels debate is such a distraction and is so dangerous because people outside of this room who don't spend their whole day thinking about eFuels, thinking about BEVs, they don't know that we're talking about false alternatives here because one already exists and the other exists mainly on paper.
But China will also produce combustion cars still, and any kind of.
A few, but the trends are
Let's look
going
at another point. I mean, this is also something that you made in your initial statement where you talked about the inefficiency. And here we have Richard from the audience, who goes into the same direction because he says how much renewable energy is needed to generate enough eFuel to travel 1 kilometer compared to a pure BEV traveling 1 kilometer. So it's about the efficiency or the inefficiency, which definitely is also something that, to be very fair, we need to address. So we have electrical vehicles, we have hydrogen, and then we have the eFuels. So do you have an answer for Richard? How much renewable energy is used? Maybe you, Karl.
To produce 1 liter of eFuel, you need about 20 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
This is not very efficient. That's completely right. So if there is renewable energy available and you have an electric car, use it. That's the right direction. It's the right decision to do that. Mm-hmm. But if we produce eFuels, for example, in Chile, it's the only way to bring that energy to us. Mm-hmm. There is no competition between these energy sources. Mm-hmm. If you can use renewable energy directly in an electric car, do it. It's the right way. But this discussion does not help for the existing car fleet. We need to have that fuel for planes, for cars, for whatever, but we need to bring that fuel into our market.
We need molecules in a lot of areas, and you cannot transport electricity from Chile directly to here, and you can transport it in a way if you move it into a liquid. And you move it into a liquid if you collect the wind, put it into H2 and into hydrogen, and then the hydrogen put it together with the CO2 out of the atmosphere or of a source which is already there at the moment, that's for time being, and then you can transport it liquidly by a ship which is already existing, by a pipeline which is already existing, and you can distribute it into the existing ways and put it, for instance, 5% into the fuel. Then you already reduce automatically, directly, the CO2 threat for the environment. And that's what we think. It's not that we are against the BEV. Once more, it is, again, what Karl said, use it if you have it. And if you have it, it's great. But we don't have it everywhere, and the electricity which we can collect in Chile or in Namibia or wherever is much more than we can use directly there in those countries.
Maybe to add one thing regarding the investment to produce this renewable energy. If you want to produce this energy in Germany, you need 4 wind turbines. In Chile, you need 1. So the efficiency of the investment and the output of this investment in Chile is much better than in Germany, and therefore you get, if you take this also into account, the efficiency will get slightly better.
Okay, good. Very good. So when we look at another question that we have here, and again, I mean, it's more a comparison, BEV versus eFuel, who will win in the long run? Yeah, of course, maybe we can try to guesstimate something around that. Will there be a winner, or will it be,
I mean, I don't think that we will have a
complementation?
winner. We will have a lot of situations where you need molecules. It is like that.
Yes.
And not here in Europe, not here in Berlin. We can use a lot of BEV, and we can use a lot of developments, and that's why I think battery as a service is the key thing for the future, because the suspicion at the moment is so big because of the battery situation, and it's also very, very expensive. And also, I think you should also think about the materials. We have a problem with materials, with raw materials. We need a lot of copper for BEV. We need a lot of copper for the lines, and all other materials we need for that. And we have to recover them. We have to recycle them. And at the moment, the constructions are not in the way that you can really recycle them. And this development has to be made as well. And for the meantime, the liquids are, for a lot of cases, also for off-road, building materials or generators or so on, so important. It's not either or. It's both, and we need both.
Yes, yes.
See, I
Sebastian,
don't
yes.
even disagree with that. I completely agree. We need those molecules. I think where we disagree is that your argument works if we had an abundance of those molecules. But the problem is we don't. We don't have an abundance of those molecules. And even if all the regulation that you want would be in place, we wouldn't have an abundance of those molecules, because the efficiency issue that we just discussed, you can never innovate away. You will always have losses. So we can't build all the windmills that we would need to power everything that we could potentially power with eFuels. So we will always have scarcity, even if the most optimistic scenarios exist.
But we have scarcity of raw material, of energy here as well. We will not have 100% electricity for all the uses we need ourselves. We have at the moment 60% import for all the uses with fossil fuels, not only for transport. And all this cannot be replaced by our own production of regenerative energy.
Absolutely
We need
clear.
some kind of import. And as Karl says, this transport from the energy you can produce there, from the electricity, can only be transported by a molecule way. Otherwise, you can't transport it. You cannot have an electricity line from Chile to Europe.
Exactly, but just very briefly, because it is so scarce, we need to use it in those sectors where we don't have an alternative, because otherwise we will just simply not have enough renewable energy to power all the needs that you would have and the needs where we don't have an alternative at the moment. I think there's just no way around that argument.
And I see we have no way around to import molecules from somewhere, and that should be renewable.
Okay, we will not solve this here. We will not solve this here. But really, yeah, maybe only one sentence from each. So when we would be sitting here in 2030 at the next Automotive Masterminds, what do you think? What will have changed then? What will be the scenario? Will we use eFuels? Will we have more electrical vehicles? What do you see? What will be the mix?
Hopefully, Porsche will have the right strategy, and we sell 80% of our cars as electric cars.
Okay.
And we also can fulfill the dreams of our customers, and they can buy a combustion engine.
Clear statement from you, Karl. Thank you very much. Sebastian?
I think it's very simple. I think in 10 years' time, we simply won't sit here and discuss eFuels anymore. The economics of this and the practical problems we have, they just don't stack up. I think 10 years down the road, we will have answered that question that someone put up there before, and the answer will be BEVs.
Okay, and Monika?
I can not more disagree, because we have 250 million cars in Europe, and in 10 years' time, we will probably have, now let's say, 25 to 50 million. If we are optimistic in Europe, but then we still have 200 million. And these 200 million, I want to have them in an atmospheric, good way, CO2 friendly, and that's eFuels, and that's why we need the big investments. And there are the big mineral companies who have the money to invest, and I want to encourage them to invest.
Thank you very much, Monika. So a big applause to the three of you. Monika Griefahn from the eFuel Alliance, Sebastian Bock from Transport and Environment, and Karl Dums from the Porsche AG. Big thank you for all your excellent contributions.